Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Canfor Annual General Meeting. Delighted to have a big crowd here today. Looks like we got just the right number of chairs. My name is Mike Kornberg. I'm a director and the chairman of Canfor All Service, the chair of today's meeting. This is the 35th Annual General Meeting for Canfor since it became a public company, and delighted to have you here. The purposes of the meeting are pretty straightforward: to receive the results of the company for the trailing year, to elect directors, to appoint auditors, and to consider a shareholder proposal that was submitted. It's included in Schedule A to the information circular. We know the results of the vote associated with it, but there may be a conversation about that resolution that was put forward. Once we've dealt with the necessary business of the meeting, the legal part of the meeting, I'm going to turn it over to the fellow seated to my left, the CEO and president of Canfor, Don Kane. So welcome, Don. And Don is joined on the stage there by David Calabrigo, who, among other things, serves as corporate secretary of the company. So thanks, David, for your help with this meeting. If it's possible, what I'd like to do is ask that any questions be deferred until the end of the meeting. If they're general in nature, if they relate to a specific topic that we're going to discuss, we're of course, welcome that input. David is going to serve as the secretary of the meeting, and it's my pleasure now to introduce the directors of Canfor. I'll mention them one by one. Peter Bentley, Glenn Clark, Jim Pattison, Conrad Pinette, Max Singleton, Ross Smith, John Baird, and William Stinson. Each of these directors has worked diligently and carefully on the business of the company. We had a good board meeting this morning. We're going into a strategy session tomorrow. I'll just remind the directors that starts at noon now tomorrow and is business casual for Ross Smith. Ross keeps showing up at these meetings with his tie on, and we're all impressed with his ties. We are today thanking Jim Pattison, who's been a director of Canfor since 2003. Jim has been a fantastic director who cares passionately about the company. The needs of the businesses that are part of the Jim Pattison Group has become such an overwhelming priority that Jimmy is stepping back from the board, but is not losing any interest in the business of the company. And so, Jimmy, certainly on behalf of your fellow directors and the management, just want to publicly thank you for the immense contributions you've made for Canfor. Thank you. At this time, it's my pleasure to introduce a nominee for election at today's meeting as a director, a fellow named Ryan Barrington-Foote. So, Ryan, if you could stand. Ryan is a fairly young guy, but a really strong fellow as it relates to audit and tax matters and other issues that are going to be important additions to our boards. We're delighted, Ryan, to have you on the board. On behalf of the board of directors, I'd also like to acknowledge the tremendous contributions made by personnel of the company, through to all the operations, and certainly the folks that work within the executive office. We're fortunate today to have a number of the officers here. I'll introduce each, and again, if you wouldn't mind standing to be recognized. Patrick Elliott, who's the Vice President and Treasurer. Mark Feldinger, Senior Vice President, Energy, Environment, Transportation, and Sourcing. Wayne Guthrie, Senior Vice President, Sales and Marketing. Bob Hayes, Vice President, Transportation, Procurement, and Distribution. Doesn't look like we have Bob. He's a tall fella, just in case you're wondering. Stephen Mackey is the Senior Vice President, Operations Canada. And for the first time, this is being said publicly, Kevin Pankratz is the newly appointed Vice President, Sales and Marketing. Fred Stimson, who's the President of Southern Yellow Pine, Canfor Southern Pine, and Rick Wilson, the Vice President, Corporate Development and Strategic Capital. With the consent of the meeting, I'm going to appoint CST Trust Company to act as the scrutineer for the meeting and call on David Calabrigo to deal with the notice of the meeting.
Mr. Chairman, a notice calling the meeting was mailed to all shareholders of the company entitled to receive such notice. CST Trust Company has provided us with a certificate as to the mailing, and a copy of the certificate will be kept with the records of the meeting.
Thank you. I realize, mostly because my friend Don Kane pointed out, that I failed to mention Alan Nicol, who is our Senior Vice President and CFO. He might have been wondering if he got re-elected, but for sure he has been. Alan, we're happy to have you. Mr. Secretary, if you wouldn't mind, please present us with the results of the preliminary scrutineer's report.
We're pleased to report that there are 86 shareholders holding 113,646,190 shares represented in person or by proxy at this meeting, representing 85.6% of the total issued outstanding shares of Canfor.
Thanks, David. As chairman, I adopt the scrutineer's report and declare attendance of the meeting to have been as set forth in that report. In accordance with that report, I declare a quorum to be present and the meeting to be duly constituted for the transaction of business. I'd ask those that have kindly agreed to move or second motions to stand up, identify yourself, and make or second your motion. As you know, in order to make these meetings move forward, it's always helpful to plant some of these movers and seconders in the audience. That isn't to take away from discussion on any of the matters that we're going to deal with, but just to try to accelerate the progress of the meeting. The first item that we're going to deal with is relates to the minutes of the last meeting of shareholders. They've been available for review by any shareholder who wants to see them. Unless somebody wishes them to be read, I'll entertain a motion to take the minutes as read and to approve them.
Mr. Chairman, my name is Rick Wilson, and I'm a shareholder of the company. I move that the minutes of the annual general meeting of members held on April 27th, 2016 be taken as read and be approved.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. If there's a seconder, I'll entertain.
Mr. Chairman, my name is Wayne Guthrie. I'm a shareholder. I second.
Thanks very much. You've all heard the motion. All in favor, please signify by raising your hands. Anybody opposed? The motion's carried. Thank you. Next item of business is to place before the meeting the consolidated financial statements of the company for the year ended December 31st, 2016, together with the auditor's report and the report of the directors to the members. These statements and reports are contained in the company's annual report, copies of which are available at the back of the room in case anybody missed it. Unless there's any questions, I'll regard the statements and reports as having been received by the meeting. Next item of business is the election of directors, and the meeting is now open for nominations.
Mr. Chairman, my name is Mark Peldier, and I'm a shareholder of the company. I nominate Peter J.G. Bentley, Glenn D. Clark, Michael J. Korenberg, Ryan Barrington-Foote, Conrad A. Panett, J. McNeil Mac Singleton, Ross S. Smith, William W. Stinson, and John R. Baird as directors of the company to hold office until the next annual general meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Felninger. The persons nominated are management's nominees for election, as was stated in the information circular that was mailed to the shareholders. Are there any further nominations? There being no further nominations, I declare nominations to be closed, and as only the required number of directors have been nominated, I declare all of those directors to have been duly elected as directors for the ensuing year. Next item of business is the appointment of the auditors, and it's the board's recommendation that KPMG LLP, Chartered Accountants, be reappointed as the auditors of the company. May I have a motion to that effect?
Mr. Chairman, my name is Patrick Elliott. I am a shareholder. I move that KPMG Chartered Accountants be appointed auditors of the company to hold office until the next meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Elliott. Is there a seconder?
Mr. Chairman, my name is Stephen Mackey, and I'm a shareholder of the company, and I second the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Mackey. You've heard the motion. All in favor, please signify by raising your hands. Anybody opposed? The motion's been carried. Thank you very much. KPMG LLP Chartered Accountants are reappointed as the auditors of the company for the ensuing year. Next item of business is the consideration of the shareholder proposal set out in Schedule A to the information circular. May I have a motion to that effect?
Mr. Chairman, my name is Kevin Pankratz, and I'm a shareholder of the company. I move the consideration of the shareholder proposal as set out in Schedule A to the information circular.
Thank you. May I have a seconder?
Mr. Chairman, my name is Rick Wilson. I'm a shareholder of the company, and I second the motion.
Thanks very much, Rick. As chair, I note that a majority of the votes have been cast against the proposed resolution regarding the shareholder proposal. As such, the resolution is defeated. That isn't to say, though, that we wouldn't entertain questions on the matter if there are any or any discussion. There being none, I'd now like to call on Don Kane, the company's president and CEO, to address you and tell you what's going on in the company.
We are in Vancouver's traditional territory of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh First Nations. Thank you for joining us today at our annual general meeting. I will keep my remarks brief, but I would like to take this opportunity to reflect on 2016 and comment on a few areas we see as important in 2017. We had solid performance across the company in 2016 and continued to advance our strategic goals. We increased the shipments of higher margin premium lumber and pulp products. We further diversified our markets and our specialty product mix. We increased our access to additional high-quality fiber and increased our focus on innovation across the company. In 2016, Canfor Corporation achieved an operating income of $306.1 million, which was up from $141.6 million in 2015. Our Q1 2017 results were released this morning, and we reported an operating income of $107 million as compared to $72 million for Q4 2016 and $65.1 million in Q1 of 2016. Safety remains our single highest priority, and I am proud of the impressive safety performance by employees across all of our operations. In 2016, Canfor's overall medical incident rate was 1.90, which was the lowest rate we have ever achieved. Our commitment to safety is just one of the many ways we show how much we value our employees. We're consistently recognized as one of BC's top employers, thanks to the Promote From Within culture that offers exceptional opportunities for career advancement and growth. We also continue to be recognized by BC Business as one of the top 100 companies in BC, and Canfor Pulp received awards from the Canadian Industry Program for Energy Conservation Leadership and from the Industry Training Authority for helping grow BC's skilled workforce. Also, we continue to diversify markets across the company. We are developing markets around the world as solid wood continues to increase its recognition as the green building product of choice and for the significant environmental benefits that it provides. This is leading to new applications for our lumber, including non-residential structures in North America and Asia. In Vancouver, we provided much of the premium grade lumber used in Brock Commons, an 18-story student residence at the University of British Columbia that is currently the world's tallest wood building. We continue to see solid gains in global market development due to our exceptional alignment of our industry associations, and our federal and provincial governments. It is the best example I've seen in my years in the industry and clearly demonstrates what can be accomplished when all areas are aligned and working closely together to grow the pie, as we like to call it. In 2016, we continued to develop markets in Southeast Asia, as well as India and the Philippines. In addition, we continue to develop long-term partnerships with existing customers in the United States, Canada, China, and Japan. Here are just a few examples of the great opportunities in existing and emerging markets. China just announced a significant economic development area called Shangan that will be bigger than New York City. It is being described by government as innovative and sustainable, and one of the several eco-cities that are being developed across the country. An increasing demand for high-value lumber in China due to many new applications. The same is true in Japan, where there is also many new applications such as hybrid post and beam combined with 2x4 construction and new non-residential multi-story commercial opportunities. Canfor Pulp continues to expand its offering of pulp products through Fiber United, our strategic sales and marketing cooperation agreement with UPM Kimini. The arrangement is working well for both companies in China, Japan, Europe, and North America, and we expanded in 2016 to include South Korea, the world's 5th largest pulp market. Our Canadian lumber operations strengthened their share in targeted high-value markets through a key strategic acquisition, allowing us to better serve customers worldwide, and we have taken steps to ensure we have access to high-quality fiber as the annual allowable cut harvest rates decline in BC following the mountain pine beetle infestation. The acquisition last year of Windell Box and Lumber in BC's Creston Valley produces premium boards and customized specialty products. Our BC operations are facing log cost pressures due to market-driven increases in purchased wood costs and stumpage, and as a result, we continue to focus on 100% utilization of our forest resource and recovering the highest value from each log. Turning to look at our operations in the U.S. South, in 2016, we completed the final phase of the purchase of Scotch Gulf Lumber in Mobile, Alabama, and completed the purchase of Beatles and Balfour Lumber Company in Georgia earlier in 2017. Our U.S. sawmill assets continue to perform well, and we are pleased with these acquisitions. Log costs are stable, and the fiber is of very high quality, which allows us additional opportunities in new markets and new applications. As a result of our growth in the U.S. South, we opened Canfor Southern Pine corporate headquarters in Mobile, Alabama this past October. In 2016, we invested $161 million in capital improvements for our lumber operations, including major upgrades at our Polar sawmill in British Columbia and our Fulton sawmill in Alabama, and a kiln replacement in Houston, BC. This supports our strategy of producing higher value products and increasing their returns from our residual fiber. 2 Canfor Energy North pellet plants located next to our sawmills in Chetwynd and Fort St. John were fully operating in 2016. Chetwynd began operations in 2015, and its organic Rankine cycle generator began operations last year. The Fort St. John plant was completed early in 2016. The plants, built in partnership with Pacific Bioenergy, use sawmill residual fiber to produce pellets that are being sold through long-term contracts to Asia. Canfor Pulp also had a solid year in 2016 under the leadership of our president, Brett Robinson. The global pulp demand was relatively stable, and the weaker Canadian dollar partially offset the impacts from lower U.S. dollar NBSK pulp prices and higher shipments to lower margin regions. Our paper business maintained its strong operating performance, and Canfor Pulp's energy business continued to grow with all three energy facilities running at full capacity at our pulp mills in Prince George. Canfor Pulp invested $68 million in capital improvements at its pulp and paper operations in 2016 and is committed to sustaining this level of investment for the next 3 years to deliver top quartile operational, environmental, and financial performance. Canfor Pulp's energy business continues to grow in 2016, and we generated close to 966,000 megawatt hours of electricity from our Prince George pulp mills. We signed an agreement with Licella Fiber Fuels of Australia in 2016. Licella technology will convert biomass into renewable biocrude. Licella and Canfor Pulp are working together to develop a plan to commercialize this opportunity. In 2016, we implemented the third phase of our integrated information management system for sales, inventory, transportation, and supply chain, and launched a new integrated system for our human resources. These significant integrated system investments ensure we are able to grow strategically with customers and improve our overall supply chain performance. Both companies are realizing significant benefits from these new systems. We took a number of steps in 2016 to build a more diverse workforce, including actions to attract, develop, and promote the most talented employees regardless of their ethnicity, gender, age, sexual orientation, religion, or any other dimension of diversity. Our executives signed a leadership commitment to diversity, and we launched several initiatives to ensure we can attract, retain, and advance the most talented employees at Canfor. Our sustainability report was published this week and provides a more detailed look at what we are doing as a company to make progress on workforce diversity and our commitment to documenting our progress. We continue to collaborate with First Nations who have traditional territories in the areas where we operate to develop business partnerships, encourage more involvement in supporting forest sector careers, and to ensure appropriate management and protection for areas of cultural importance. We were honored to receive the first Spirit of Unity Award from the Prince George Nechako Aboriginal Employment and Training Association. Finally, I'll comment briefly on the softwood lumber dispute and the preliminary countervailing duty rates announced on Monday. Canfor received a rate of 20.26%, slightly higher than the all others rate of 19.88%. We were not subject to critical circumstances determination, meaning we are not required to make retroactive duty payments. These duties are punitive and completely unwarranted. They are not based on fact, but are a result of protectionist efforts by the influential U.S. Lumber Coalition aimed at artificially restricting supply for their own benefit at the expense of U.S. consumers. We will defend our company and work with our colleagues to defend our industry against these completely unjustified duties, as we have done successfully in the past. We will fully expect this determination by the Department of Commerce to be overturned by independent NAFTA and WTO panels, as has been the case in the past, and that the duties will ultimately be rescinded and returned. We have had excellent support and collaboration from the Canadian federal and BC provincial governments and have every confidence that they will take all the appropriate steps to successfully fight these protectionist trade actions, again, as they have done in the previous cases. However, for now, our company will be subject to a duty rate of 20.26% on shipments to the U.S. market until we are successful in having it overturned. Canfor is very well positioned to respond to this challenge and aligned and focused to continue to serve our customers worldwide. We've been preparing for several years through significant diversification of our markets, growing global markets in general through promotion of wood as a green building material. 14 of our operations are now in the U.S. South, representing 1.6 billion feet, or approximately 30% of our production. and we've made significant capital investments at our BC operations to ensure our overall competitiveness. We have excellent people who rise to every challenge, and one of our company's core values speaks to that. We are resilient and resourceful. We always find a way forward. This situation is no exception. We have every confidence that we are positioned well for the future and are able to serve our global customers now and for the long term. So I remain optimistic about this year and our ability to continue to be a global leader, supplying customers around the world with diverse, innovative, and high-quality wood-based products. We are fortunate to be part of a sector that is being recognized as a tremendous source of sustainable solutions for the future. The potential for our products to expand further into non-residential and hybrid construction is significant and is driven in a large part by a growing recognition of solid wood being recognized around the world for its green attributes. We are seeing positive demand from most of our markets for both lumber and pulp products, and despite the market volatility we expect to see for lumber in 2017, we remain optimistic that our diverse portfolio of assets, strong customer demand, and strong balance sheet will serve us well in 2017 and beyond. I want to thank those of you who make our success possible, our operating communities, our customers, and our shareholders. And I want to especially recognize the many contributions of our excellent, exceptional employees. They are the ones that make it happen every day. I also would like to thank our board and our chair, Michael Korenberg. We appreciate your support, guidance, and advice throughout the year. I would also like to recognize Jimmy Pattison, who has decided not to put his name forward for re-election, as Michael mentioned. In his place, I would like to welcome Ryan Barrington-Foote to the Canfor Corporation board. Jimmy's involvement in Canfor has been a time of significant transformation for our company, and his leadership and support have been instrumental to the company and to me personally. I know we will be able to continue to rely on his guidance going forward. So my sincere thanks to all of you. Thanks for being here today, and I look forward to working with all of you in 2017.
Thanks, Don. I noticed in the audience that we have two independent directors from Canfor Pulp, Stan Bracken-Horrocks and Barbara Hislop, who were elected earlier this morning at the annual general meeting. So welcome to each of you. And we also have a former chair, in fact, a couple of them with Peter Bentley, but Ron Cliff, who used to chair both Canfor and Canfor Pulp, and you're always welcome, Ron. It's nice to see you here. So with the formal business of the meeting out of the way, certainly this would be a good time if anybody would like to ask any questions. Yes.
Good afternoon. My name is Lori Mayhew. I'm here on behalf of the Staff Pension Plan of the Canadian Labour Congress. I had expected to move the shareholder recommendation that we put forward. But be that as it may, I do want to commend the Canfor for having diversity as a goal. However, without a plan, you don't get where you need to go. Much as you need to plan around the current U.S. countervailing duties, you need a plan on how you're going to get to the goal of gender diversity as well. And I couldn't help but notice that every name read out today on the board of directors and senior management is a man. So clearly the nice aspirational goal of gender diversity doesn't appear to be working in its current form.
Thank you for your comment. I'm not sure, David Calabri, or if anybody would like to.
Thank you, Lori. Thank you for your comments. As Don mentioned in his speech, we take diversity, of course, as one of the more important goals we have. And we have programs and other things within management, the company, where it advance women in our organization. And the board is committed to diversity, diversity in many forms, gender diversity, ethnic diversity, diversity from communities, and those other things. So thank you for your comments. Don't want you to think that we don't take the issue seriously. And I invite you to read our sustainability report, which is just published, to talk about the kinds of things we're doing to advance women in our organization, the kind of goals we have in the future for doing that. But I agree with you. The only way you can measure success is to create something that takes you in a certain way. So we're doing that. We hope to have more success in the future. Read our sustainability report. I think you'll find it enlightening in terms of what we're doing there.
And I think, David, you've communicated at least to the board of directors and I think to certain shareholders that it is your plan during 2017 to develop a plan for the company.
That's right. And the board's committed to putting in place a diversity plan for the board by the end of this year, and we'll publish it next year in the information circular.
So thank you very much for the shareholder proposal. It wasn't accepted as it was, but it didn't mean that we didn't move forward with the concept. Thank you. Any further questions? There being none, I'll entertain a motion to terminate this annual general meeting.
Chairman, Wayne Ginsky, I'm a shareholder of the company, and I move that we terminate.
Thank you, Wayne. Is there a seconder?
Mr. Chairman, my name is Mark Feldier, and I'm a shareholder of the company, and I second the motion.
Thank you. Have a motion made and seconded. All those in favor? Anybody opposed? The meeting's terminated. Thanks so much for coming out. Cheers.